I'm actually kind of glad I took this back apart. I mean, not so much that my HDMI repair was a bit fouled, but I mean, so far I rectified that for now. Further testing will determine that. But these little foam pads, I still don't really understand their function aside from like maybe giving some type of like springy resistance to the housing, so maybe it doesn't teeter as much. I'm not entirely sure. But the one thing that is about them that I noticed, something that I definitely think is not insignificant, is they have a short to ground. I'll try and see if I can illustrate that a little bit. Let's go to resistance. I'm just going to go across the X clamp. Right there, it has a... I mean, it's a little... It has a short to ground, 0.3 ohms. Or 3 ohms, and it's bouncing around. But I do that... I had a better result just doing continuity. I get a beep. So that's purely not coincidental. This is way too big of an operation to be, or Microsoft's way too big of an operation to just put these little conductive foam pads there for no reason. And when I'm replacing the foam pads with my double-sided black tape, the black tape's not conductive, so these foam pads lose their continuity with ground. I'm going to assume these are here for a purpose, other than just, like, spacing. Like, they short the ground for a reason. So what I was doing is getting a really tiny piece of wire, putting it underneath my black double-sided tape, touching the motherboard, wrapping it around, putting it on top of the double-sided tape, and then putting this foam pad down. Because before they were not shorting to ground, but now they both do. So they've retained their ability to short the ground. It's definitely a little flaky. Like, it would be a lot better if I, like, soldered it. But right here, it is shorting to ground, even though I am using the double-sided tape. I should probably pick up some conductive double-sided tape. But in the meantime, I can just kind of... I need to do this last foam pad. So I have the tape already cut out. I very much mistakenly put it on the motherboard to hold it. Okay, got it off. So I have my wire. I don't remember what gauge this is. I think it's 30. If not a little... I think 30 is the smallest I have. I'm just going to bend it. I'm going to place down the double-sided tape, making sure that it's underneath it. It's going to be a bit hard. Kind of press it down a little so it's making the best physical contact it can with the board. And I'll remove it. And then I'll kind of show this black tape is not electronically conductive. So me tacking it on, it's not conductive with this. I am still shorting against ground with this long pad. But that little wire I just installed underneath the black double-sided tape should be shorting to ground. I mean, I might just have to press it down really hard when I put the last piece on, which is right here. It's not exactly lined up perfectly, but it's good enough. Press it down. Oh, and I skipped a step. Now the wire is shorting to ground. I need to actually put the wire underneath this. There we go. Press it down nice and hard. I'm gonna clip it. So now the pad itself should be shorting to ground. And I mean should in a perfect world. I might just have to keep sort of massaging it down to get it the best contact that it can. The wire touching the board is still conducting the ground. The wire that I wrapped around to the top of the tape is conducting the ground. And now the pad is. Okay, cool. Is it only conducting when I put a little bit of pressure on? Yes, it is. So I found that with the pad right underneath the HDMI port, if I just sort of massage it down. And I mean, this will probably lose conductivity over time. Like right now, it's conducting the ground. Like once that double-sided tape loses tackiness, it may lose conductivity to ground. But at least for right now, it still is. And getting conductive double-sided tape might be very handy. So like for this little foam piece, it is conducting the ground. And then the other foam piece that I unceremoniously melted a little, which is a little frustrating. So what I want to do is I'm going to need to strip a little more wire here. Now I put 2 pieces of double-sided tape on. And again, I don't know how long this will last, or how necessary this is. Like, there is one foam pad on each side that is still factory that I did not touch. So functionally speaking, it shouldn't be... It should still have a path to ground that I didn't interrupt with my tomfoolery. There, so I have that wire taped down. I guess I could kind of zoom in on this a little better. I have the wire taped down, so I want to bend it over so it sits on top of the tape as well. And if everything is going correctly, just that should be making contact with ground. Kind of something like that. Let me check it. I'm just gonna... The wire isn't touching any ground part. Currently not contacting ground. Might just have to push it down a little. Let me get the foam piece on it. And then just kind of massage it down like I did that other side. That seemed to work. but even if this doesn't last, what it will do is it will do something better than what I did before. So I can at least be happy with that. Let me orient it this way. It kind of came apart on me. I have to put another piece of tape on. As long as the conductive piece is making good contact. Then I want to put a little piece of tape so then I can close that up together. This black tape is nice. It's very nice. Doesn't want to stick that well. Grab another piece. That's a little better. To try and tuck this in as tightly as I can. Roll it over and press. It's about, I mean, maybe I rolled it a little too tightly. Yes, I did. It was sitting a lot lower than its counterpart. It's not sticking as well as I would like. Okay. Now let's see. Are we still good? Currently not. Currently so. I mean, I already did melt this. Currently not again. Let's see if I can press it down. Okay, it is currently conducting right now. I don't expect it to stay like that, but I at least made the effort to restore its original functionality. Double-sided conductive tape would be the best solution, but I think for now, that will be the best that I can do. So what I want to do next is grab some of the foam, or some of the putty, and just sort of reform it into itself a little. Just so it has another opportunity to just sort of smoosh out. And make good contact. Now what I did before is I put on rubber gloves, took all the putty off, and rolled it back up into a ball before smushing it back down, but this will just be my cheapo solution to this problem. Do it on the power or the expansion card. Weird that they put the expansion card heatsink on the power supply. I find that most peculiar. You'd think the power supply is the one thing you don't want to put heat into. And just sort of mushed it back into a pile. Well, now I should be able to get this thing back together. Give it a test. See if my HDMI fix is still viable. Let me check and see if this pad is still conducting the ground. Still is. How about that? I didn't even think of doing that when I was putting this back together originally because I didn't really care. Well, not that I didn't care, I just didn't think it was a necessary component, but I think kind of everything is necessary to a degree. A company like Microsoft wouldn't do something just for no reason. Especially when it comes to like manufacturing units that they're producing in the millions. Okay, the X clamp is on. I never removed it. Going through a checklist of items. I need to put this little tab back on. All the ports are lining up. Get the main components on. Get everything screwed back in. Now, I did try thinner wire when I was first investigating that little fix of sorts. I have really thin, like, 0.01 millimeter magnet wire. I just don't think it was making good enough contact with the pads. I think even a thicker wire than 30 gauge would probably be better. Because then that little foam piece would be able to sort of envelop the entirety of the wire instead of just barely touching it. But I mean, between the X-clamp and the one foam pad I never touched, this console should have plenty of paths to ground. On the off chance something happens. And I'm not worried about that wire dislodging and rattling around the board. That would be unfortunate. That double-sided tape is very strong, at least for the most part. Strong enough that I don't have to worry about it releasing that wire. Releasing the foam, maybe, but not the wire. I mean, if the foam is conductive, I don't want that rattling around either, but, I mean... The rectangular foam bits I'm not worried about, it's that square one. I mean, if I have to put a dab of hot glue on it, I could. Just to make sure it stays in place. Even if it doesn't conduct the ground anymore, I'll at least know it won't dance around the motherboard. Wonder if I could have even soldered to it. Took out the little foam piece and... I'm not gonna go that far, but... Now it's underneath the... I don't think that's gonna come free on its own. I say that and I already dislodged it. Alright, I need to work on that some more. See, I don't know how much of this is actually the power supply. When in doubt, more tape. Bend the wire to put it on top of this new piece of tape as well. Then I'm going to try and put a little piece of tape on the inside again. Have it stick to itself so it remains a cube. Put it on the edge. Give it a nice good press. There, I feel a lot more confident about that. It's not moving around as freely. Let's see if it retained its connectivity. Ground. And it still does. Cool. I didn't expect an HDMI port to be so... An HDMI port problem to be so involved as to... See, now that's not coming off. Cool. Like, the other Series S that I worked on had a bad resistor that I had to track down. This just had an HDMI port. I thought it was going to be really easy. Which, I mean, in grand scheme of things, it was pretty easy, but I didn't expect it to be this interesting. Or it didn't have, like, a bunch of extra interesting bits. I don't think I took off any of the foam pads on that other one, so I don't think I need to do this process on that console, so... Actually, I know I didn't, because I didn't touch anything around the HDMI port. I didn't need to. Alright, now let's actually get this thing together. So now the console's at least cinched together enough that it represents the most realistic scenario for that motherboard. Me putting on the exterior case screws, or just sort of the outer cosmetic pieces, has no real bearing on the performance of how this motherboard is secured. So this would be the best time to sort of rerun the sort of like HDMI jiggle test. Get everything plugged in. Hopefully this red controller is still synced with this console. I actually don't know. Gotta find which one of my controllers has batteries. Oh, this one does. Okay. Well, so far it's not promising. I don't have anything on my capture card display. All right. Oh, it's still doing it. Wait a second. Oh, there it goes. Okay. What the heck? Why is it doing that still? Is it my Why I use the exact same HDMI cable? Surely don't understand. Let me try another HDMI cable that's not connected to my capture card. This one. Okay, I see it. It's still doing that. Why is it still doing that? I don't understand. Okay. This is a very perplexingly frustrating issue. The port is shorting with the metal. The port is shorting with the metal housing, which it should be. But why is it that when I sort of rock it around, does it lose contact to ground against the housing? have contact the entire time. Okay, well, let me plug it back in. Hit the power button. I need to find out when it, or what position it cuts out. Okay, I see it booting. I need to find like the most sustainable position that it cuts out. Okay, is that repeatable? So if I do counterclockwise and then down at that corner, that's when it's most... Okay. That seems to be repeatable, so now I need to go back, take everything back apart. I need to get to that port. And see maybe if one of the pins, I don't know, is broken at this point. I have no idea. I find it extremely unlikely to be my solder job, but that's the only thing that makes sense. Unless there's like a broken trace. And I think I need to properly reform that putty. I don't think my clumping did very well. Worth a shot. This is going to be a little difficult. Thankfully, I can sort of... should just be able to slot in my probe into one of these pins. Kind of want to get the microscope on that so I can see what I'm touching. I'm gonna have to sort of maneuver everything. A lot of cables. Okay, so pin 1. Try and touch the pad, not the actual pin. Just seems to still be holding on to continuity the whole time. Pin 2's ground. I'm gonna go to pin 3. Pin 4. Pin 5 is ground. Hmm. It's pin 7. Pin 9. I really don't know. Nothing mechanically seems wrong, but there is an issue. I don't know why it looks like it's still wet. Thought I got all that flux off. Like, the only thing I can think of is maybe I broke one of the traces? Nothing seems very consistent with a broken trace, because it's either like a yay or a nay. It's not just like a only under certain pressure. Those just look rock solid. I'm so confused. Oh, this pin. The only one I was able to get to cut out. But the key is if I can reproduce it. So, yeah, right now I'm getting nothing. So it could be that it could be my cable not making contact with this pin. It's a squiggly pin. I need to try and clean that off a little better. I don't know why there's like this residue left. I don't think it's the pin. I don't think it's my solder job. I think it's something else. I don't know if like the line is busted in the port itself. Because even when I touched the pin, it lost connection. So it's not my solder job, thankfully. Let me try and just hold against the pin itself. I'm for me for my chirping to be cutting in and out. Keep touching the thermal putty. Yeah. Cuts out on this pin. Right. Yeah. I can only really hold it for like a couple seconds. So what pin is that? 19, 18, 17. It's pin 16. So where is pin 16 relative to the HDMI cable? To see if I can look at the pin specifically. 18, 17, 16. So 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16. It's that last pin to the bottom that's not recessed. Let me see. So it should be the pin 1, Or all the way to or the one away from the left. Pin 16 should be this one right here. Oh no, it would be this one right here. Right? So 19, 18, 17, 16. Can I not touch? Do I have to touch it from the bottom? Am I completely backwards here? 19, 18, 17, 16. Or are these little end bits not conductive? Is it on top? These little end bits sure do look conductive. Not looking at this backwards. What's going on here? Oh, did my multimeter turn? Oh, I don't have the HDMI cable in. Absolutely stupid. Okay. I don't have my tester cable in. So that's why it's not shorting. Biggest problem is it looks perfectly fine. They all look fine. I do notice there's some like flex in the port, but that seems to be consistent across the entire port. So if it's not my solder job, then it's something about the pins actually making contact. Is it because that piece is too narrow inside the HDMI port? Is this just a shitty HDMI port? I would not say that both my HDMI cables are bad. Or all three. I have 3 HDMI cables that I fed to this and I was able to produce results. Really, the only thing I can think of is keep cleaning that port to see if I can rectify whatever's wrong. I mean, I could even use my tester HDMI cable to sort of help clean the port. Dribble some rubbing alcohol onto these pins and then just sort of letting friction. how I clean game card slots on DS consoles. I don't see why this would be any different. This is a brand new port. It shouldn't need cleaning, but, I mean, what are the chances that maybe just a little bit of stubborn flux is on there? I want to get this putty off before I keep tracking it everywhere. Well, get this going again. And then what I might do is just let it sit for a little bit and then come back to this a little later and just, if I do produce favorable results, I'll come back to it later to see if those symptoms return. I have a feeling like it's going to produce favorable results and then suddenly go away. If it doesn't, I might have to look into just replacing this port. Maybe this port, maybe just me molesting it so much just wore it out or something. I really don't know how to interpret what I'm seeing. So far, so good. Nope. So it's not showing on the capture card footage, but my feed is cutting in and out on my monitor. Oh, now it's fine. It's better, I guess. My feed is cutting in and out on my monitor. And it looks like it's kind of displaying as like a glitch on the capture card. So maybe it did just need cleaning. Okay. I can keep trying to clean it, see if it gets a little better. Even now I can't... I don't want to do this too aggressively. Now I can't get it to cut out. Okay, well, I guess I will let this be for a little bit. I'll try cleaning it one more time with the other, or with my HDMI port. It's not too surprising that stuff got in there. Stuff being like flux, most likely. And gumming up the port. But what I've learned from doing game card slot cleaning is this usually will do the trick, but this would be more like cleaning an old HDMI port, not a new one. I'll just keep going this a couple times, and I guess to kind of continue my thought, what I've learned from doing this on DSi consoles is if the pins are still wet, even though this says 91% rubbing alcohol, it should evaporate fairly quickly. It may produce false positive reports for up to like several hours after the cleaning, where I could clean a game card slot and it behaves perfectly even after the alcohol dried, but I go to it a day later and either the symptoms are back or they are back, but they're better. And that's maybe what I saw after I spent time putting all the little foam bits on and putting this console back together, is even though it was working okay, I got a stable image out of the console. Once I put it back together and actually began testing it, the symptoms returned. I didn't mean to be pressing down on these cooling fins as much as I have. Bent them a little bit. Be a little more careful in that regard. Okay, I think that's good. I'll let this console chill. Let it dry off. See if I can get these symptoms to reoccur. And hopefully I don't have to replace the port. Ugh. What a pain. Here I thought I was gonna get somewhere with this console, but it still needs just a little bit of attention. So maybe I can get this thing back, or maybe I'll do a proper reassembly and a test that is satisfactory, but for now it's still going to behave like this. And hopefully that cleaning will make it better. I let it sit for about an hour and a half to let it dry as I could, and there was no change. I would go in, plug in the HDMI cable, and just shifting it from side to side was enough to kill the input. So, what did I do? I swapped it with my spare, or the second one that I got. So, that process went very well, and I think that installed quite nicely. And the initial test I did proved very promising. So what I'm doing now is reattaching all of the foam pieces. Now, I'm doing something a little different. I did the wire before, which I thought was a good idea. I don't want to toot my own horn here and saying it was an awful idea, but I don't think it was very permanent. So what I did then, or what I'm doing now, is I'm putting a blob of solder, making a mound, so that when I stick it down, the mound will be making, not only will it be making a greater physical contact, it'll be a lot more permanent. I won't have to worry about that little wire dislodging and throwing itself around the board. So I just got the double-sided tape on this side. I wanted to test it out. I put the square piece on the other side already. And I did the same thing. I put a little mound of solder. And it seems to be very promising. I didn't have to press down that hard, and it seems to be making stable contact the whole time. So hopefully this will work a lot better than my wire idea. And as far as the HDMI port, I don't know what happened to this other one. I'm gonna keep it just as like a spare. It's possible I may have damaged it just in my fiddling around when I installed it originally, but I really don't have enough evidence to really like say that that's the problem. Only to say that, well, it was problematic and I couldn't fix it through the means that I was trying, so I had to replace it. That was the only option. This one I might have to be a little careful about because this is the one that sort of threw itself open. Or that sort of unstuck itself and unraveled. That should work. So I'm hoping that those little mounds of solder will give me a much better contact. So let me try here. It's just going to be on continuity again. I don't know if the beeps come across, but they'll come across for me. Yeah, just like that. Like, I'm much more pleased with that. Like, I didn't even press that hard. I don't have to worry about those not making good enough contact. So I'm very pleased with that. It'll be a lot harder to, like, if I change my mind and want to take that off, that's going to be a lot harder to take off than a little piece of wire, but I think that'll be a much more lasting compromise to not having double-sided conductive tape. Maybe in the future I'll get conductive tape, but that is not the here and now. And plus, conductive tape would take way too long to get here. Since I'm very confident about my HDMI port swap, which maybe me being confident puts me in a bit of a false confidence, but I need to just go ahead with the idea that it's okay for now. So let me don my gloves. I might just don one glove and reform my thermal putty. So really just reforming my thermal putty will just be scraping it off and then just sort of kneading it into a ball and then just sort of plopping it back on and then letting the mounting pressure smush it back out. I did that for everything under the heatsink. That's why I was mostly resistant to taking the heatsink off if I don't have to. So because this expansion card is kind of big, I'll kind of smush it down into like a log. And then before I can put the whole entire motherboard in the heatsink, I need to get the two blobs here off. Do the same thing. This stuff is still plenty hydrated, so I really don't feel a need to replace it. I mean, it is a Series S. It's fairly new. Maybe in like a decade, the stuff will need to be replaced. Oh yeah. Take off my glove. Wipe off my pry tool. Here's hoping this will be the last time I put this thing together. I will do the same thing I did before. I'll just get it to the point to where it's together enough that putting it together further wouldn't yield any significant differences in how the board is mounted. Meaning all of the screws in the motherboard are in, and applying the rest of the housing would offer no variations in whether or not my HDMI port fix worked. Smush that thermal putty down. Okay. You know what? I've been very pleased with this Series S. It's taken a lot of my abuse. Like, replacing the HDMI port twice. Like, it's not damaged in any way. Like, even the motherboard held up really nicely. I know when I put heat to DSi motherboards, they kind of char. I don't know if it's because my heat is way too... It might be because my heat's way too high. It doesn't seem like it's too high. Or just whatever board material they used back in the early 2000s. Early to mid 2000s is much different than what they use today. I would hope the composition... Well, it might be different. Different enough to make it a little more flame resistant. Or maybe they just used a board material on the Series S that's a little more heat resistant. Flame resistant probably isn't the best term in this case. Just heat resistant to allow it to go through pick and place machines quicker, I suppose. Or I guess to handle the thermal load of what installing a massive APU would require. I do not even want to think about the tool I would need to reflow that thing. I can do HDMI ports with a heat gun. APU. Ugh. Let the specialty shops deal with those. I don't quite have a $500 to $1,000 kicking around for something that crazy. And then if this works, that won't impact any of my other testing. Like, swapping the HDMI port won't impact the performance of the ability for the controller to connect to the console. Nor should it impact any of my thermals, because I didn't remove the heatsink. I may have to just play on it a little, because I am swapping, since I am dealing with the sort of display functionality of this console, I'm going to have to sort of verify that there's no, like, artifacting or anything weird in regards to how it's displaying an image. Okay, that is everything to hold everything in place. Nothing else contributes to how everything is held in place. Like, I mean, the through-hole studs to some degree, but not significant enough as the... Not as significant as the screws that go into it. Let me plug in my capture card. Well, it's already plugged in, just bring up the footage. So it'll cycle on, turn off, and then turn back on again, and then that's when it will actually boot. Should actually go to the footage on my end. Oh, it's good on my end. The capture card's not showing it for some reason. Hang on. Sometimes the capture card will do this. There it is. Yeah, it turned on just fine on my end. So let me... Oh, you gotta be kidding me. It has to be my cable then. What is going on? Are both of these ports just bad? Hmm. Like, I'm almost wondering... This can't be normal. Have I just been, like, chasing... Let me grab my... I thankfully have another Series S. Let me go grab it. I can almost guarantee I know what the result's going to be. And it's not going to be that. Here's my other Series S. This one, I did not do anything to the HDMI port. Wasn't even looking in that area. It is on. And I am plugged in. It's just taking a bit to cold boot. There it is. Oh! So this is normal. Or that maybe it's just my HDMI cable. So I just replaced that other HDMI port for no reason. I mean, I don't necessarily like that it's this finicky, but this is essentially a stock unit. The HDMI port was not touched. So for it to do this, I just shifted it to the side and it disconnected. Will it reconnect? No, let me unplug it and plug it back in. Okay, there it is again. I'm gonna go on another tangent here and grab my Series X. That I know has, like, this thing has been opened, so it's entirely possible the HDMI port was replaced and whoever did it did a damn fine job to the point to where I didn't even notice. But let me grab a console I know has never been opened, nor has it been worked on. Ugh. So this might be a little hard to fit in frame, but here's my Halo Series S that has issues, but that's not the point. What I do know is it has an unmolested HDMI port, and I've been treating this thing very, very well. I should probably plug in the HDMI port. It might just kick me straight to the dashboard. Yeah, it does. Okay. Yeah, this behaves exactly like I would expect it to behave. I can jiggle around this HDMI cord all I want. It could just be, that's just how the Series S is. I'm gonna have to sit on that one for a while. I really don't know how I want to interpret that. If that's a problem, or this is just a quirk of the Series S and just like, well, plug it in, don't screw with the HDMI cable while it's on, and you'll do fine. It's not like this thing's a portable console, so it really shouldn't be experiencing any type of, like, force, per se. This is a most aggravating issue. I'm gonna call it, I'm just gonna say that. It's very aggravating. Because despite my efforts, I can't seem to resolve it. Either it's a failing of the port, or I mean, I just proved it's not my cable. Yeah, so it's just gonna be, just don't touch the HDMI port, or the HDMI cord. Because of my two Series S's that I have, they both have issues. I mean, and this may not even be an issue. This just might be how it is. I don't know. Yeah. I'll have to think about what I might just have to give a fair warning that that's just how it is. Because, I mean, this was my first HDMI replacement. And that was my second HDMI replacement. For them to exhibit the exact same symptoms, and especially compared to a stock console, that does seem to imply that my install was not the problem. Which is both very comforting and almost a little frustrating as well. So, and I mean, I didn't notice any of these problems with that other Series S. So I think that just might be something I just have to say, like, hey, this is just what happens. If you jiggle the HDMI port, it may cut out your display. That's just kind of how it is. I don't know why these differ from the Series X to the degree that it's not even an issue on the Series X compared to this, but other than that little quirk, this thing works perfectly fine otherwise. I'll test it with the new HDMI port just to make sure, again, that there's no, like, artifacting or anything weird that may have been caused by, like, a weak solder joint or a cracked solder joint or anything of that nature. But at least as far as I'm concerned, yeah. Irritating, but it works. So I think at the end of the day, that's just what it's going to have to be. So I'll get this thing fully reassembled, and then, I don't know, maybe run around in Red Dead for a little bit. At least I can take solace knowing that my first HDMI port replacement, and my second one, was a complete success within, I guess, acceptable parameters. Again, I'm not going to claim that this is the normal behavior. I would say it isn't. But it's also that my two HDMI ports that the two HDMI cords that I'm using are also probably heavily used. It would almost behoove me to grab just one more HDMI cord. Just on the off chance that just the ones that I'm using are crappy. And these are not like representative of actual cables. I do want to clean the port out really quick. Just like really quick, just like... But then that would be weird that my capture card HDMI would work perfectly fine on my Series X, but not my 2S's. I'm gonna, like... I can't even say that as a guess, because it would be... I do want to try something. I have my calipers here. I don't know if they're going to be accurate down to the scale that I want it to be. Or I can't even reach down in there. What I wanted to do is try and take a measurement of the actual board that holds the pins, but I can't get my calipers in there. Damn. Just to see if there was like a physical difference between the two Xboxes, the Series S and that Series X. The only thing I can think of doing is grabbing another HDMI cable that I know is new. Or at least unused. Trying to think if I have any. This is a cable from a Nintendo Switch, Nintendo branded cable. So I can at least know that it's relatively new. And I mean, I think these are from this is from a Switch OLED. So it's still an oldish cable, depending on how old you're thinking. And I'll get I'll put this into my capture card. And of course, I almost can't even say, like, what could be contributed as a factor, because sure, my capture card is a factor, but surely if I had problems, that would have shown up on my Series X as well. The Series X was like the control subject in this case. So let's try this one more time. And then I might just have to say, you know what? Just plug in a good HDMI cable, don't bump it while playing. Shows up, just as expected. I'll wait until it gets to the profile selection screen so I don't have to worry about the console flashing, just on a stable screen. Oh, would you look at that? I did just clean the port. So that will yield some amount of false positives. So let me go grab my other... This isn't necessarily about my other Switch, or not my other Switch, my other Series S, but... Just for the sake of, like, thorough testing, I do also run this. This one has quite a hell of a lot of documentation with it, because I did quite a bit with this console. all to find a shitty resistor. But this isn't about this console, so that's for another day. Okay, powering on. Stable screen. Nope. This one cuts out. So I just have to just say, you know what? Don't fiddle with the HDMI cable when it's plugged in, and you should be fine. It's at least at its default position. It does work. Alright, yeah. I'll say that the cleaning makes a false positive. Because I'm going to make the very bold assumption that this Switch OLED HDMI cable was very gently used relative to the ones I have here on my desk for testing and stress testing and things of that sort. Just very perplexing little problem. I would say that I would make the goodest assumption that the HDMI cables that come with Nintendo Switches are of good quality. I would have to think they are. But I'll just have to caveat that. Anyway, let's get back to this. So let me grab... I don't necessarily need to put all the front panel connectors on right now. Let's get this back on. Hopefully for the final time. Odd issue. Especially one that I never noticed before. Oh, I will need to put on the front panels. Yeah, because I have to sandwich it in this before I can put the studs in. That's just a really... I'm really caught up on that. I don't quite understand it. I don't think that is intended behavior. But I can't seem to resolve it. Nor can I understand why I can repeat it on what should be an otherwise unmolested console. Oh well, I think at the end of the day, I just have to say that this console had a bad HDMI port, which rendered it useless. It didn't show a display, you can't play on it. And now does show a display, and you can play on it. It is in a much better state than where it's at. It's not a level of perfect that I would like. Most certainly not. And that's not even including the little foam bit I melted. But at the state it's at, it is usable as an Xbox Series S. And I mean, as long as you don't have like animals and creatures running behind and snagging on cables while you're playing, I find this to be in perfectly acceptable shape. It's a bit unfortunate I couldn't quite resolve whatever that issue was. It almost seems like the spacing between the pins on the HDMI cable and the actual pins on the HDMI port, I think that gap could be like... not only is it incredibly small, it could be just a bit larger on the Series S's. At least the two that I have, than that of my 1X. Or my Series X. And that just tiny variant is enough to create an instance where if you just shift the HDMI cable just a little bit, it will cause it to lose connection for a fraction of a second. And that's very reminiscent of the Nintendo DS and its game card slot, where if there's if the pins are dirty or if maybe those little pins are bent down inside the slot, it'll create an instance where the game card will disconnect for just a moment, not even just a fraction of a second, which causes it to disconnect. And when you're playing a game on a DS and it disconnects for that fraction of a second, the entire console will either just freeze or just completely shut off in response. This console's not as dramatic, but I mean, losing your display for a couple seconds for when it cuts out and sort of reinitializes could be rather devastating if you're playing a competitive game. But I think I just have to yield to the fact that I don't think it's anything that I can fix. Whoopsie. I really do like sliding on this back panel. Just feels so nice. Hello from Seattle. All right. Now that we're back together, I'll let this chill for a day. Just to see if I get these symptoms to pop back up. I'm assuming they will. But for now, I need to make sure that all my fiddling with my HDMI port. Well, let me sync my controller. There it goes. I'll turn on the sound too. Why not? And I mean, I can just blow it up too, watching the actual consoles and all that interesting. I don't remember how far I got during one of my stress tests. That was the last, or how far I got when I stress tested this console. Because I think this was the one I stress tested again. No, I don't think it was. Oh, interesting. I like an anti-aliasing on. Is that what's doing that? Whoops. Sharpness at 100%. Restore all. It might just be the display I'm looking at. It just seems like those cactuses, the thorns on the cactuses just seem really bright. I do see it on my footage too. And I don't want to, like, look for problems. 'Cause that's when I tend to find them. Maybe I should play a game I'm a little more familiar with. But this has been kind of my daily game. Because I would know if something's wrong, or if something doesn't look right. Because I haven't properly played Red Dead 2 in, like, a good couple years.
Humanity is very weak.
Oh boy, everything's done.
So desperately.
Okay, now that that's settled, let me run a mission. Everything looks fine. I don't notice anything that might be different during gameplay instead of just navigating menus. Oh god, I really need to turn off controller vibrate. That's better.
Descendant, a large cluster of
And then
breach
also
creatures
turn
have been
off
detected
world
in the
chat.
area. Breach creatures multiplying. There must be a colony.
I know the Series S does kind of struggle with this game, especially when a lot of entities are bursting on screen like it is right now. It's slowing down considerably. That is just a Series S problem. I noticed this on my other one, too. My Series X can handle it just fine, but oh boy. When a lot of numbers are bursting on screen and a lot of effects are going off, it starts to really tax this console. Because if anything, I should be using this game as a stress test, but I do so many different things in this game that it wouldn't be consistent enough for it to be reliable. I'll just let my poison take care of all that. I almost wish I had an FPS counter. I'd be able to see just how much it's doing.
Descendant, Volga's comms traffic is increasing at your location.
Inventory
It
full.
looks like Legion of
No.
Breach troops have been deployed. Volga's special assault ship identified. How was that? Watch your feet. Primary tactical objective confirmed.
Oh, I
Search and
missed.
destroy
It was
required.
right there in front of me. Wall breakers here in 2 minutes. I wonder if I can do this. 2 minutes.
Descendant, a large cluster of breach creatures has been detected in the area.
Everything looks fine. I haven't noticed anything. Like that weird like cactus shimmering and the weird thing with the sun. I don't know what that's about, but I mean there's a lot of like flashes going on in this game, so if there was anything with like blooming, I should be able to detect
Breach
it.
creatures multiplying.
At least in this
There
game.
must be a colony.
Especially since I'm looking for it. I've done this particular mission so many times that I would notice if something's a little weird. Other than me playing it on a different monitor.
I picked up a mutant material formation signal in the skies nearby. Descendant, destroy this tactical objective. Please confirm.
Ooh, chugging.
Spotted inside the operations zone.
Do it, Series S.
Descendant, Volga's comms traffic is increasing at your location. It looks like Legion of Breach troops have been deployed. Volga's special assault ship identified. Primary tactical objective confirmed. Search and destroy required.
I was not tracking that game very well. Thankfully, there's a rather large, generous window for matchmaking to this thing. Good luck, Ultimate Bunny. Depending on how much time I get here, I can jab a probe in this thing and see what the temps are like. I don't think I've been playing long enough to really get a good idea of the temps. I'm just gonna sit here and watch as the thing gets melted. I'm helping. Ah. I helped.
I'm disappointed. Can't go down.
Just you see. I'll show you what I'm made of.
Did I get anything I wanted? I mean, not really. And looking at the thermals, this game easily cranked it up to 48 degrees. That's about what I detected as a max on Red Dead. Well, I think it was about 50 is when I sort of peaked. So if I really wanted a quick thermal test, I could just play this game for
I
10
picked up a
minutes.
mutant material formation signal in the skies nearby.
So, yeah, I just the conclusion I have to draw is maybe just a weird quirk of the Series S is that the jiggling the HDMI port will cut it out. Now it doesn't, so... But I'll see how it behaves tomorrow when I really thoroughly let it dry. Like I was saying with the DS's, is sometimes it will report a false positive for several hours before just reverting back to what it did before. And it's all of its good and bad and ugly. But even if it does revert back, I mean, I just have to be okay with the state that it's in. It's playable. It's much better than what it was before. So I think I can be happy with that. Well, I have to be happy with it, whether or not I like it. So cool. I got that all squared away and got it all put back together. And tomorrow I can give it another chance of a final test.